Welcome to Shah's IAS Institute. This is our website www.asha.com. We upload current affairs here daily. Looking at current affairs for 3rd October 2016. Looking at the news first. The news items are picked up from the Hindu newspaper. The 9 news items which we have picked up for today are: first one is on India finally ratifying the Paris Climate Agreement on 2nd October 2016, the birth anniversary of Gandhi Jayanti. India-Japan nuclear deal, which has been stuck on the nullification clause. There are chances now that this would be signed when Prime Minister Narendra Modi visits Japan in November 2016. The third news is on ORO, one rank, one pension, the demand of ex-servicemen, which will finally be fulfilled now. So the service limit which they had of 35 years, the government is going to delete that. CIL, Coal India Limited, will pay more levies as now the government has put in from retrospective effect levies which will be imposed on the royalties paid by all mineral mining companies. So next news is about China's yuan. It will join the elite club of IMF reserve currencies. This was already decided. Now China has officially been inducted on 30th September 2016. Then Colombia, a country in South America, has problems because of the terrorist organization FARC being prominent there. Now Colombian government is signing a peace deal with this FARC, but it is putting this peace deal to referendum, whether the government should sign it or not. So this is the news on that. Then next news is about India's organ transplant program. How far has it fared and what more needs to be done? The next news is about an Indian origin, a South African girl who has won the Google Science Fair prize because she developed a super absorbent, highly absorbent polymer which will help in absorption of water and retention of water in the soil so that farmers in drought-hit areas are not affected. The plant may not need irrigation so often. So this is that. And next, finally, the news is about an NGO promoting clean energy bags UN Climate Solutions Award. So this is an Indian NGO who helps women to become entrepreneurs in selling clean energy commodities like solar panels or like selling a cook stove. So that is the work which they do. So they have been awarded now. Looking at each of these in detail now, the first news item, India ratifies Paris Climate Agreement. The Paris Agreement was finalized at the 21st COP Conference of Parties of UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Paris Agreement is a successor to Kyoto Protocol. Kyoto Protocol could not succeed much. USA did not sign it first of all, and it put binding commitments on developed countries, and developing countries were not required to give binding commitments. Now what the Paris Agreement does is it requires commitments from all developed and developing countries, and these are commitments given by themselves. So the protocol or the agreement will not put conditions on you. You decide what you can do for controlling climate change. So the intended nationally determined contributions, INDCs, were submitted by all countries who signed the Paris Agreement. India has also signed and submitted INDCs. Now what it is doing is ratifying the agreement. There is a difference between signing and ratifying. When you sign an agreement, you agree with whatever are the terms and conditions in the agreement are correct. But when you ratify it, it becomes binding on you. So India ratified it on 2nd October now. So she becomes the 62nd country to sign. The Paris Agreement will come into effect once at least 55 countries sign and at least 55% of global emitting countries, our target is reached. So India's emissions are 4.1% of the global emissions. So with this, it goes up to 52. There are 3 more percentage points required. Once that is accomplished, then this treaty will come into force. The difference between these two, as I said, and the INDCs which have been submitted now become NDCs. Means now once after ratification, now they are binding, you have to follow them. There was some criticisms in the country that India should have changed some provisions in it because it should look into whether it can fulfill all those or not. But there is a condition already mentioned in INDCs that all such commitments can be made based on funding being made available to us for global funding for climate change and assistance in getting clean technologies. So based on these only we can fulfill these commitments. So that is already there. Then Gandhiji's birthday was selected for signing of this agreement. There are two things. One is Gandhiji's birthday is already known as International Day of Non-Violence, that you should know. And another thing is Gandhiji also supported clean environment. He is said to be the first and the foremost environmentalist in India. He spoke about how climate will affect the population and you should not change the environment to such an extent that our future generations suffer. So that is one major provision under sustainable development. So he had already given such views much earlier. So that is also known. Another thing which happened in this UN meet was that MS Subbalakshmi, a Carnatic singer, was also felicitated. Postage stamps have been released by UN honoring her. So that is about the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement, these NDCs, will be reviewed every 5 years, and global stock taking, that is the term global stock taking means that checking whether things are going right or not. This will start from the year 2023 and after that every 5 years review takes place. Whatever contributions you have submitted to the under the Paris Agreement can be reviewed again. So that will also be there. The next news item is on India-Japan signing the nuclear deal. The nuclear deal between the two countries is stuck on the nullification clause. This has turned controversial. Nullification clause basically means that Japan wants that if India conducts a nuclear test, then the nuclear deal is broken. It lapses. So immediately lapses. Indian government wants no, if anything as such happens, then there should be still negotiations and then a consideration on the deal can be done. The Indian government has not signed NPT and CTBT. NPT is Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which it calls as discriminating as India is not recognized as a nuclear weapon country under it, though it has nuclear weapons. And CTBT, Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, is also on the same lines. India has not signed because of the discriminatory conditions between nuclear weapon and non-nuclear weapon states. So now since it is not signed these treaties also, India is not ready to sign them. Plus it is not, that is why the Japanese government wants this nullification clause being inserted. So that has not happened. Let's see how the progress goes. But there are words that maybe when the Prime Minister visits Japan now in November, the treaty nuclear deal may be signed. And Japan is important for us. Japan is important because it is the owner. Toshiba, the Japanese company, is the owner of GE and Westinghouse, which are companies in USA but owned by Japanese company. And also the critical parts of the reactors which are required are sourced from Japan. So we need them for our reactors too. Another thing also, we need funding. The Kovada nuclear park in Andhra Pradesh needs funding, where US funding has become difficult now because of the liability clause. That if a nuclear accident happens, then who will be liable? So there we want liability to be imposed on these nuclear providers of nuclear technology, whereas they refuse to take the responsibility. So there it is stuck, and for Japan it is stuck on the nullification clause. So let's see how does that happen. But Japan is a very apprehensive country because it is the only country which has faced nuclear weapons, and it is also the recent country which faced a huge nuclear disaster, the Fukushima disaster, where leakages took place in a nuclear reactor. So of course that is there. Another thing, Japan also wants strict conditions. It wants that even reprocessing will be allowed of nuclear fuels and technology under the Indo-Japan nuclear deal, but it wants IAEA. IAEA is International Atomic Energy Agency, which will look into inspections of how nuclear products are used by countries. So under IAEA, inspections should be allowed. That is what even Japan wants, and it wants still more stringent conditions than what are mentioned, which India is not ready to finalize on. But hopefully the deal will finally come through in November. So fingers are crossed now. And also another thing, if we don't get these critical components from Japan, then the other option is China, which we don't want to go ahead with. So we are keen on having this deal signed with Japan. The next news item on OROP, one rank, one pension scheme. One rank, one pension scheme is a demand by the ex-servicemen in the military, because what happens is pension is given to these ex-servicemen, but the pension rates are different. Means when the time when the ex-serviceman retires, the salaries which are paid then, the pension rates are fixed on the basis of that. Every time a new pay commission comes up, the salaries are enhanced, hike comes in, and that's why the pensions of new officers are different. So the government and the ex-servicemen now demand that it should be same pension. If they are retiring at the same rank, the pension should be same in a particular year. Means presently this date, older ex-servicemen receive lesser pension and fresh ex-servicemen who receive more pension. So that differentiation should not be there. Government is not ready to accept this demand because it will be a huge burden on the exchequer. So that is about ORO. Right now, the government has said that it has agreed. So pension benefits as recommended by the 7th Pay Commission will be given to all ex-servicemen. Earlier, it was also condition what was put that if they have completed 33 years in service, then only they'll get full pension. Now, that condition has also been removed. Everybody will be given full pension. So ORO has finally come true. This was also a government promise, poll promise of the BJP government when it fought the Lok Sabha elections. Now it has finally come through. The next news item is on Coal India Limited. Mining companies are required to pay a levy. Royalties are paid to the government. In addition to that, a levy has been imposed by the government which is at differential rates. A 10% rate and 30% rate. 10% rate is on all those mining blocks allotted before January 2015. That is, they had been allotted without an auction. And post January 2015, they have been allotted via auction. So the levy charges would be 10%, and for earlier allocations, levy charges would be 30%. And this has been put into effect retrospectively. Retrospectively means the notification came out in September 2015, and the government says that this is applicable from January 2015. So even the months which have been passed, for that also these levies have to be paid. So that has been challenged in the Supreme Court also, and the judiciary is looking into the matter whether retrospective effect can be applied or not. And now the coal was actually exempted from this. For coal it was retrospective effect. So presently what the government has done is, for coal also it has become from retrospective effect, that is from January 2015 onwards. So it wants to make its case strong before the Supreme Court, because this differentiation is also not understood, that why coal has been exempted from retrospective effect and other minerals have been under retrospective effect. So that is about the news here. And the allocation, the money which will be gathered through these levies will go into the Pradhan Mantri Khanij Kshetra Kalyan Yojana, which was launched in September 2015 only. This was the same time when this notification also came as an amendment to Mines and Minerals Development and Regulation Act. So this amendment gave these conditions. It also asked all districts to establish district mining foundation, and these district mining foundations will collect the levies, and all these levies will go into this for this Khanij Kalyan Yojana, under which it will be used for the welfare of the people affected by these mining areas affected people. The next news item is China's yuan joins the elite club of IMF reserve currency. As we have already seen, this is an old news. What has just happened presently, China has been formally inducted. IMF has these SDRs, special drawing rights, which it gives to each country. So IMF SDRs are just like reserve currency. It's not actually a currency, but it depends on how much quota, how much money you put into IMF. That much quota is given to you, and those quotas are in units of SDRs. So those are the SDRs in IMF. And presently the reserve currencies in IMF are 5: US dollar, euro, yen and British pound, and the fifth one now adding is yuan. The next news item is on Colombia having a peace deal. We discussed FARC. So this peace deal would be put to referendum. FARC, Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia. This is the region here. It is Then next news item is on organ transplant. Organ transplant, there's a demand that not just organ transplantation should take place, but after that too the data should be recorded so that we know whether organ transplants have been successful or not.